We've got Sekou. Tyler here is going to be talking about some of the similarities and differences in terminology between Power BI and Tableau. And then we got Brandi here to talk about all of the wonderful things that she does. So, but before we get started, we're going to have a little icebreaker because that's always fun to do. So, if you play Wordle, put in either your longest streak or your current streak. So I'm currently on a 9-day streak, which is good. I think I messed up on inert the other day. That was awful. That was a tough one for me. But to any of the panelists, are you guys Wordle players or any of the Wordle offshoots?
Yeah, my longest streak is 0. No, I'm not a Wordle player.
Nice.
I want to. I see everybody playing it, but I just haven't downloaded it or understood the time and taken into it. But I think I might after this. You might have sold me.
There you go. There you go. Brandi?
Oh yeah, I'm a big Wordle fan. I will say I don't like any of the variations though. Like I don't have time for that. What I like about Wordle is that there's one word and I can only play it once a day. You know, I can't get sucked into it. So
yeah. Nice. Yeah. Speaking of the alternatives, or Lucas, do you play?
No, I was just gonna say, just do a call out to Brandi for crushing your mark here, Sean, at 34. Yeah. So that was pretty bad.
Yeah. Yeah. So
playing for like 10 days. So a 9-day streak's pretty good, right?
That's right. Yes, exactly. Yes. Yeah. So some of the really cool, there's some weird ones out there like Octortle. That's a really fun game. So that's 8 Wordles in a row, and you have like 15 tries to get all 8 words. So you've got to be pretty good at that. But some of the other offshoots that I've been interested in is Hurdle. So HEARDLE. So it is the intro of music songs. So they give you like half a second to listen to the intro of a song, and you have 6 guesses to learn how it is, and then each subsequent guess will give you longer amounts of the intro. So that's a really good one if you're a music fan. And then Framed. So framed.wtf, which I don't know, I didn't come up with the URL, but that is if you're a movie person, they will give you 6 stills of the images from the movie, and you have 6 movie images to figure out what the movie is. So lots of cool alternatives, but who knows, maybe we'll somebody, I'm sure probably one of the Flurridge twins is probably already trying to come up with a Tableau version of Wordle in the Tableau world. So we'll be on the lookout for that. But let's go ahead and get started. I don't remember if Aaron talked to you all about the order of things. Do you know, or do you care, or we can just anybody want to volunteer to go first?
Doesn't matter to me. You want to flip a coin, Brandi?
I'm indifferent. It really doesn't matter.
All right, then we'll start off with Brandi in that case.
All right, great.
Cool. So go ahead, take it away.
Thank you so much. Thanks. All right, let me get the appropriate screen up here. Okay. Well, thanks so much for having me. I'm really not good with titles, like coming up with catchy titles. Like I just can't do that. If anybody has a fantastic skill in that area, like definitely let me know. But my goal, so Aaron reached out to me about presenting, and I love to talk about Tableau. So like my answer is yes, but she had mentioned that a lot of the attendees for the Kansas City Tableau user group really like Tableau desktop demos. And I mean, who doesn't? But, I think there's probably a lot of people out there who do awesome stuff in Tableau desktop. And to be honest, I learn from them. So I didn't really necessarily feel like I do a lot of really awesome, like mind-blowing stuff in Tableau Desktop. What I do think a lot about is how do I work with other people in Tableau, whether that's with my team in Tableau Desktop or with the consumers of my dashboard in something like Tableau Server or Tableau Online. And so I'm actually going to talk to you about all of those things. So we're going to start in Tableau Desktop, and then we're going to move to Tableau Online and talk about all sorts of different, like, I kind of categorize them as like enterprise type tips and tricks. Yeah, because I mean, I think most people are probably working within a team, right? Or working at an organization where you're building stuff for other people. So how do we make the most of those, I don't know, different capabilities and components? So that's kind of the genesis of the presentation today. I'm a big fan of questions, so definitely ask questions, and if I have time, I will answer them. Okay, so a little bit about me. I am not going to read this all for you, but basically, I've been using Tableau for, this will be year 11. I've been working in data for, I mean, just like 12 years, I guess. So most of my career has been with Tableau, super involved in the Tableau community. And when it comes to like my personal life, it also revolves around data. So my wife is a data scientist. I will say we have 2 dogs, which you may hear from them later. And I'll have a lot of hobbies. I'm like a dabbler in hobbies. So yeah, I just kind of like to play around with like tech toys and stuff like that. So, so that's a little bit about me. Again, I kind of talked about this a little bit, how we're going to start in Tableau Desktop and then move to Tableau Server. Because of the nature of my work, I'm not able to share my company's data with you, but I decided to take my resume that I've built in Tableau and use that as an example. And I feel like it's a pretty great example because, I mean, I think most of us are probably familiar with resumes. It's a pretty broad concept that hopefully we all have some exposure to. And it's less about the use case and more about the different steps along the way. So we're going to cover some tips and tricks and best practices and all sorts of fun stuff in Tableau Desktop, and then move to Tableau Server, where we're going to take advantage of some metadata and automation capabilities. So with that, let's take a quick peek at what my resume looks like in Tableau, and then we'll dive in. So this is my resume. I wrote a whole blog post about it this weekend, actually, in preparation for this meeting, about the lessons I've learned along the way. So I'll share that link with everybody in a little bit, but this is essentially what I came up with. And we're going to dive into, again, some of these tips and tricks along the way, and I'll show you how some of the magic is created. So with that, let's take a look at the data real quick. Because it's on another screen. Cool. Okay, so I have all my data in Google Sheets, and I've got really 4 tabs. We can ignore the temp tab, but education and experience. So this should be pretty standard resume material. It was pretty easy to copy and paste this into this format from like my resume in Word. I also have skills that, to be honest, these are like self-reported ranks, or like I'm scoring myself. So that was, I guess, one lesson learned when creating my resume in Tableau. You have to quantify a lot of those things yourself, which felt to me kind of like arbitrary. So I thought, well, how can I quantify my skills in some other way? And on LinkedIn, you can people can endorse you for skills. And so I actually just exported or copied that information out of LinkedIn. So for certain skills, I've been endorsed a certain number of times for them. So essentially that's what that tab is. And then the final tab is an events tab. So I'm super involved, like I said, in the user group. And yeah, I keep track of everything I've ever participated in. So that's what this tab is about. So that's the data. I think it's just nice to see it before we look at Tableau Desktop, because as you know, Tableau Desktop kind of hides that, that level of granularity from you, and you just end up with these different fields. So I've already set up the data sources here in Tableau Desktop, and we're going to just jump right in. So first tip, I guess, before we even start building stuff is preparing your data set. So I've already created the connections to the data set, and I've decided to actually rename some of these columns because I actually had the word category in like every tab, and that's going to get kind of confusing. So are we talking about like an activity or an event or a skill? So I've renamed those fields, but then I've also added comments to these fields. So when I hover over one of these, a little pop-up appears here that gives me a definition. And I feel like this is, while it takes some extra work, it's actually really impactful in multiple places. So the first thing is, like, imagine for a second, I'm working on an executive summary, like a daily report that goes out to all the executives in my firm. And let's say I'm the developer of that originally, but a teammate of mine needs to update that in the future. Knowing what the fields mean are really important. And just by hovering over the field, you can get that definition. So to set that up, you actually right-click on the field, default properties, and comment. And you can just type it in here, whatever you want. And I use this to add definitions. So I don't do it everywhere because, I mean, let's be honest, this is a relatively small data set. I'm sure we've all dealt with data sets that have, 50 to 100 or more columns of data. I would likely just do it on the really, really important ones. So, all right. So in addition to those comments, the next thing I'll do is do workbook formatting. I do that before I actually build anything else, because your formatting, if you set it at the workbook level, it just gives you a really good default. It creates some consistency. If you have a brand or marketing style guide type of stuff, it's better to add that formatting right away to so that you don't have to do it on every tab or every sheet as you go. So I like to just start right away with my formatting. So to format at the workbook level, it's as simple as format workbook, and then you set your fonts, your font colors and sizes, and then I always turn off grid lines because I hate them. So I do that here. Oh yes, so John in the chat here is already getting ahead of me, which is amazing. He talks about adding comments to your formulas 100%. So let's take a look at one of these that I've put together. So when you actually get into that development phase where you're building stuff in Tableau, you're likely creating calculated fields. And in those calculated fields, you can use this // 2 forward slashes to add comments. And I usually do this. I try to do it everywhere, but especially on like kind of complex calculations, so that there's a reason why I'm like, parsing out the month and the year and then adding a space in between it. Like, why am I doing that? It's because I want it to be in a string format. So adding those comments in your calculated fields is kind of like another really important tip, especially, and I say, I give the example of like working with a team. Let's be honest, I also do it for myself, because 3 months down the road, am I going to remember why I built this calculation this way or what the caveats are? Probably not. So comments, documentation throughout is really, really important. Okay, so we've talked about commenting on the fields, commenting in calculated fields, and workbook formatting. The last kind of element that I like to cover in my setup is actually something that's outside of Tableau Desktop, and it's something I just refer to as the preferences file. So Tableau Desktop uses something called the preferences file, and you can actually modify this to incorporate your company's or maybe your own personal branding colors. So in your documents folder on your computer, under Tableau repository folder, there is this preferences file, and you can actually just edit this in Notepad, which I'm hoping is something everybody has. And you can literally create your own color palettes and put in all of these, like whatever hex codes you have for your colors. So I should have noted, sorry, I should have noticed this in the very beginning, because if you're frantically trying to take notes, I've already documented everything here, and I have links to how to customize your preferences file and workbook level formatting. But I have all of these tips that I'm covering in this document. That's something I learned from Erin when she presented at our user group. So I will send that out afterwards, but I'm a big fan of the preferences file. You can send that out to everybody who gets a Tableau Desktop license, and it's a quick one-time replace. And it just makes it super easy. So now when I'm building something, let's say I just build something. No, this is a bad example, but let's say I want the number of events that I have in each one of these categories, and I put event category on the color shelf. If I go into this color palette section, I can see the Brandi color palette, and gosh, why I love neutrals. You'll learn that real fast. But now all of my colors are there for use pretty quickly and easily, and I don't have to like try to remember, type in all of those hex codes. So I do all of this before I even build something. And again, the preferences file is a one-time setup. But I do all of these other bits before I even start building, because it's going to make me and anybody else who works in this workbook more efficient. So the next thing that I do as I build stuff. So again, this is my resume. I'm going to go through each one of these sheets to show you a few other components. So the first, or I guess the next thing that I like to do is I actually like to use the caption field, or the caption section rather, to add notes. And you can see I actually linked to an article because I don't just know off the top of my head how to create rounded bar charts, but I've looked it up, and I wanted to not only kind of give credit, but also use this as a reference later if I need it. And then I tried to describe what's happening here, or, you know, I've also used the caption field to almost like list like step-by-step instructions on how to update a complex visualization. For example, there are certain tables that that I've built in the past that have like hidden fields and lookup fields, and somebody coming in and trying to edit that or support that dashboard might not have any idea what's going on. So I like to leave little notes and clues, and I'm usually thankful that I did. So big fan of the caption. How do you get the caption? What is the caption? Most people don't even know this exists. If you right click in any of this like kind of gray space in Tableau Desktop, there's the option to turn on the caption field, or the caption section rather. Let's actually take a look at one of the sheets where it is not currently set up. So if I right click and I select caption, it's actually going to bring up this box. And this is Tableau's like automated like description of your view. And I have never seen anybody use it. I'm not saying that there aren't use cases, but I have never seen them. And so I actually just replaced this with all my notes. So you can actually just move this around. I like it on the right hand side, but yeah, so I use the captions to leave notes, not on every chart type. I mean, this is a very basic bar chart. I don't really think it's necessary to leave notes here, but obviously on some things like this life cycle, you know, radar chart or whatever, yeah, what's going on here? You know what I mean? So I've got multiple articles that I link to, notes that I've left myself. So, okay, the other tip, it's not actually really even visible here, but I like to leave very precise formatting of the different sheets until I actually get to dashboarding. You know, I've definitely played around and messed around with formatting, like such detailed formatting here. And then when I go to put everything on a dashboard, it just looks wonky anyway. So I end up like saving the very specific formatting for once I get to the dashboard. Okay. I think one last thing I'm going to show, I guess here, I just want to give Ann Jackson some love. I love her resume. It was the inspiration for sure this chart, but just in general, it gave me a good push to actually build my resume in Tableau. So definitely want to check hers out. Okay. Once I have all the different components of my like dashboard complete, and I put them all on my dashboard, I just got to say my favorite size is letter landscape. It's my default. I'm all about breaking rules. So if there's a reason to break this rule, for sure, do it. But it's probably my favorite format. It exports well to a PDF because, let's be honest, people do that. But it also looks pretty good on an iPad if you're using Tableau Mobile. And it looks decent on regular screens. So it's kind of my go-to, but I'm curious if other people have different sizes that they prefer. I do see that there's a question if there's a limit on how many colors you can put in a palette. I don't know. Obviously, like the defaults that come with Tableau Desktop have 20 at your maximum, but I don't know. That's a great question. Okay, so that is Tableau Desktop. So I've created my resume, right? Now I want to publish it. Usually when I publish my resume, or any workbook rather, I likely have things like this events this year tab down here at the bottom. This is not on any dashboard. It's something I'm working on and playing with, but I don't want it visible out on Tableau Server or Tableau Online. So under this Sheets section, you can actually select specific sheets. And you can see events this year is deselected. And this doesn't mean that it won't get published, but it just won't be visible on Tableau Server. So you're not going to lose any work by not selecting those sheets. And the other thing that I like to encourage people to do is to allow refresh access. Now, this option may be different depending on your data sources that you're using, but Tableau Server, Tableau Online, one of the awesome capabilities there is automation, and you need to allow Tableau Server or Tableau Online to refresh your data for you. So in this particular case, I've made the decision not to show sheets as tabs, but usually I like having tabs across the top. So I'm going to publish this dashboard, and then we're going to dive into some Tableau Server capabilities. Okay. So. Right. Okay, so here is our the dashboard in question. The first capability I'm just going to point out is this data details button. Now, so I'm in a developer instance of Tableau Online, so your view may look different. For example, in Tableau Server, the data details tab may look something like this. So it just may be a little different for you, but I'm pretty sure, I mean, the last few years of releases have had this option. So if you have anything in the last, probably 4 years, you probably have this button somewhere. When you click on it, it actually opens up this pane on the right-hand side, and you can see things like who is the author of this dashboard, if it's not already apparent. But also, when was it modified, or when was the data last updated? I mean, you can even see there's 4 data sources. You can see what they're called, and you can see when they were last refreshed. And then you can also see all the fields that are used in this dashboard. And I think Sean mentioned it, giving away the goods, I think. But when you add a comment to your fields in Tableau Desktop, they also show up here. So imagine you're building something for other people, maybe your team to use, and you go through all of this effort to define these fields. If they want to know what they're looking at, they can click on the field on the right-hand side and actually see the definition that you've left them. For example, another good one. So this one where I've added notes in, so I got both the definition, the comment I added, as well as the calculation itself. So I can actually see what the calculation is here. So big fan of the data definitions panel. And personally for me, like if you're getting a lot of questions about like, oh, well, where is this data coming from? How new is it? What does this field mean? This answers all those questions, and now I get bothered less. Not that I don't want to be bothered, but if I can answer questions for people or allow people to answer their own questions, I want to be able to do that. So definitions, super helpful. The other thing I want to point out is the comment section. I feel like this is at least underutilized in my organization. If you click this little comment button, and in current Tableau, it looks something like this. So I'm actually, this is my Tableau server environment. We're on 2021.2. This is what it looks like. The newer version of Tableau Online looks like this. So, but basically, you can comment just like in Slack or in practically any other application. You can mention people. You can be like, Brandi, this looks awesome, because, and you can even click this little button right here, and it'll give you a snapshot, or it'll include a snapshot of your dashboard at that moment. Because let's say somebody's seeing something funky, or they've, created a filter, or that, they made a selection on your dashboard and they're seeing something interesting. Knowing what they've filtered on is really important. So I like always to include that snapshot in my comment. But then what I really like about commenting is just that it allows users to provide feedback or even ask questions right where they're at. So somebody asked, data details is only available if you have Tableau catalog, correct? I don't believe so. I believe it's everywhere, but that's a great question, because I am lucky enough to have data like Tableau catalog. But if somebody knows about that, please let me know. I thought it was everywhere. Okay, moving on. So that's kind of like some of those metadata components. Beyond refreshing your data automatically, the other capability that Tableau Server, Tableau Online natively provides that I absolutely love is subscriptions. So again, in Tableau Server, your subscriptions button looks like this. In Tableau Online, you have this watch section, and you can set up different ways to basically watch or be notified about changes to this dashboard or just this dashboard in general. So subscriptions, I love them because they increase the impact of your work. They basically deliver, snapshots of this view to people's emails. And you can actually subscribe other people to this, or you can just subscribe yourself. Both is cool. Now, access applies. So you're not gonna be able to subscribe people to this dashboard if they don't have access to this dashboard. You can include both this view, but also every view in the entire workbook if you want to. Ones that you've selected to be shown on Tableau Server. It's not gonna like send all of the hidden tabs, but let's say you have like an analysis that, takes you over the course of 5 tabs. You can actually subscribe someone to all of those dashboards. And then I love this, like don't send if view is empty. And I use this with my team, for example, like if you design your dashboard in a certain way so that only the items on your dashboard you need to like maybe take action on, for example, like let's say, for my team, we want to be notified of any failures that are occurring on Tableau Server so that we can like take care of them. We can design a dashboard so that it only shows us things that have failed that we need to take action on. And so if I check this box, it won't send me a subscription if there's nothing to take action on. I'm sorry for my dogs barking. The other nice thing is that you can include a PDF as well as an image. So in addition to, so then you can set a schedule as well, like when do you want to receive this? And this is pretty standard, if you use Outlook or Google to schedule recurring events, you can basically, set this up to send you this email whenever. If you want to say, hey, only send me this subscription after the data is refreshed, you can do that as well. So then it's kind of like tied to your data being current. So you hit subscribe, and then you get a little pop-up at the top that says success. So when I've already done this, so when I received this subscription, it's basically just an image of that dashboard at that time embedded in an email. Now, this is great. Again, I can get a high-level view. Let's say it's like an executive summary or something like that. And if there's something I want to dig into, and have that interactivity that Tableau provides, all I have to do is click on this image and it takes me right to that dashboard. So it's just such a, again, it really increases user adoption by like delivering that information to them, to your users. They don't have to remember to go out to Tableau to check out some stuff. Okay. So Sean did confirm that data details is only available in data management add-on. I apologize. But out of the add-ons that Tableau provides, the data management add-on is like awesome. Just so cool. You also get lineage with that, and you can see where, let's say you have a data source that is used by like 5 different workbooks. You can literally see at the column level where that field is used on an individual dashboard or sheets, who the owners are of those workbooks. And then you can even email them to say like, hey, something's off with this field and we need to like reload or reprocess the data. Just super awesome and easy. So highly recommend, but regardless, I apologize that the data details is not just out of the box. Okay, so we covered subscriptions, which is great. The other thing I just want to point out is metrics. So I feel like they're kind of underutilized. Metrics are great. You can track specific numbers from different dashboards, and it essentially just creates a big KPI for you. We'll show what that looks like in a second, but I'm gonna walk through how to create one. So imagine that you're a user and you care about metrics that are across a lot of different dashboards. It's nice to be able to just have one place to look at all of these numbers that you care about. And then it really allows that customization and personalization of your Tableau experience. So you can create a metric off of a dashboard. So you hit watch and then metric. And then in this case, I already have one set up, but I'm going to create a new one. So I'm going to create a metric, and I'm going to start by selecting a mark. So in this case, I actually want to select this Tableau bar. And what I'm interested in is the number of LinkedIn endorsements related to Tableau. And basically, I mean, that's good for me. There are some things that you can customize here, but I don't really need any of that. The default is great. So I'm going to hit create. And now we have this metric. This metric just happened to be saved to the same project that this workbook is saved in. So we're just going to jump to that project. So in this breadcrumb trail here, this is the dashboard we're on. This is the workbook, and this is the project. So when I click the project, I can now see all of the content in this project. I can see the LinkedIn endorsements metric that I just created, as well as this one I had created previously. So again, it gives me, imagine for a second that you have multiple metrics here that you want to track across multiple workbooks. You can kind of do all of that right here. I know we had talked about subscriptions being a way to automate stuff. Refreshes of your data is also really important. I try to set up a refresh on every single data set. Otherwise, in a week from now, that data is going to be stale. So in order to set up a refresh of your data, you really need to go to whatever object has your data associated with it. So in my case, I've kept my data embedded in the workbook, in this workbook here. But you can publish data sources separately out to Tableau server. When you do that, you basically allow multiple workbooks to leverage that data set. That's actually probably my best practice. That's what I try to do in general, so that I'm not having to duplicate data sets. But in this particular example, all of my data actually lives within this workbook. And so I have to go to that workbook to set up the extract refresh. So I'm going to go to the extract refreshes tab here. And you can see I already have a refresh setup, a refresh schedule. You can create multiple. So I can have this refresh every Monday at midnight, but also every Wednesday at noon or something like that. So you click new extract, and then you basically just set this recurring time. Again, much like an Outlook event or something like that. So when that data refreshes, your workbook will obviously have brand new data. So let's take a look at kind of what that looks like. I'm going to go to my data here in Google Sheets, and I actually have a whole section of events that I want to add to my events tab. So I've done that. And now if I go to my data source, my workbook in Tableau server, I actually want to run the extract refresh process right now, even though it's not Monday at midnight. So I'm going to click the three dots and select run now. So that process has kicked off. It'll take a little bit to run. So while that's running, I'm going to show one other component. So back in this project, right, I've talked about this metric that I created this one earlier. This is my resume. Then we have data sets here, or we have the education and experience data set, and then the events data set. These are published separately because Ask Data is only available on published data sets. So you can't use something called Ask Data on data that's embedded within your workbook. So what is Ask Data? So I have this published data set called events, and Ask Data essentially allows you to query your data set, almost like a Google search. And it's just pretty great. It uses natural language processing. It's pretty awesome. And if you expose this capability to like users, they're able to maybe answer some questions that you didn't provide answers to using your dashboard, which is totally fine. I think it just extends the usefulness of your data set. So a lot of the work that you do in Tableau desktop to curate that data set, right, to name columns appropriately, to add definitions and comments to them, all of that information is available to end users in Ask Data. And so you can actually see when I hover over something, I can see that the event group, it basically says this is the organization or group associated with a certain event. And you can see how many events I have associated with the Milwaukee Tableau user group. It's because I've been doing that for about seven years now. Okay, so in order to use Ask Data, we need to create a lens. To be honest, I'm not really sure why, but that's the process. So when we create a lens, we can actually kind of, again, curate this data set. This URL option text really isn't necessary. It's kind of like formatting for my dashboard specifically. So I'm going to deselect that because I don't want to include it here. But everything else makes sense. So once I do that, this is where I can essentially query my data set like Google, like you would in Google, like a Google search. So if I want to say something like, I don't know, the number of events in Milwaukee. When I make that search, Ask Data says, okay, number of events is kind of like the count of events for sure. What wasn't captured here is my in Milwaukee component. It didn't quite understand what I meant there. So I can even click on, okay, I want to add a new field. I want to, you know, say event location. And if I add event location as like a slicing type categorical field, I can see the number of events associated with these different locations. And it gives me like a little bar chart returned. So Ask Data, you know, I think we're only talking about a minor, small example, but I just feel like Ask Data, it's going to explode in terms of usage. I imagine, again, because you're able to almost like use it almost like a chat bot, really, where you can like ask a question and it gives you an answer, and it's right maybe 50% of the time. You know, chatbots, as great as they are, leave a lot to be desired sometimes. But I imagine being able to ask and answer questions off of your data set, like right from Slack. You don't even like imagine incorporating Ask Data into a messaging platform. It's just really cool. And so anyway, I think Ask Data is really great, but it does rely on a lot of those best practices that we talked about earlier, using comments, defining your fields and things like that. So that's Ask Data, and that really covers a lot of those initial enterprise best practices. One thing I do want to just circle back to is the data refresh. So I'm going to just refresh this view, and now we can see that what used to be 99 total events is now 108. And if I were to go into back into this view of my resume, we will see that 108 events down here, and we also now see these future events that are coming up. The last thing I wanted to mention is this bit about the Data Book Club. So I mentioned it briefly during my introduction, but I'm very involved in the Tableau community. And one of the things that I organize is something called the Data Book Club. And essentially 4 times a year, we read a book that's somehow slightly related to data. And we get together occasionally to discuss the book. And it's just pretty fun. It's, I think, really casual, low key. It's not really meant to stress anybody out or add like another thing to your to-do list. But if you've ever needed that motivation to read a book about data, this group hopefully helps with that motivation and encourages that with like good discussion. So I'll post some links to all of these things after this presentation, after my time's up, which I understand we're getting to that point, but I do want to take any questions that you have. I know I covered a lot. So if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them and we can dive into the specifics on things. I see somebody asked about collections. I love collections. There's so much I love about Tableau Server. And I had to like limit the things I talked about because I could just go on forever. But I love collections. Collections are essentially a way to group objects in Tableau Server. And you might ask yourself, well, isn't that what a project is for? 100%. But let's say you have projects for all of your different teams, and each team has, you know, an executive summary of sorts, but you want to be able to see all of those executive summaries in one place. Collections are just a different way to organize your content. You still need access to where that lives, but it's just a different way to kind of collect those items together. Another really great use case that my team has run into for collections is like to develop a testing suite. So my team is responsible for upgrading Tableau Server. And when we upgrade, we want to test all of the unique integration types. So if we get data from Google Analytics or from Dropbox or from Salesforce or from AWS or from, you know, Microsoft SQL Server or from Excel files, right? We want to be able to test all of those different connection types. Or if there are different integrations that we need to test for. Basically, we can create a single collection called Test Suite, and it contains these examples from wherever they live around our Tableau server, so that we don't have to go all over the place to find everything that we need. So it's really great example. But love collections. I also love favorites, which I didn't talk about. But you can favorite views or workbooks or projects or metrics. And then they all show up under your favorite section. And I just particularly like that because now every user can build almost their own custom area. Like sometimes we get access to a lot of stuff in Tableau Server, and a lot of it we don't really need. And so it just becomes like kind of overwhelming. Once you favorite things, your favorite section, it's just much more slimmed down to the stuff that you care about. So I'm a big fan of that. If there are any other questions, you know, feel free to use the Q&A window or the chat. I'm happy to answer a few of them. But I'm also happy to yield my time.
Awesome. Well, that was really great. Thank you for taking the time to walk through that. Yeah, that was a lot of really great discussion in the chat. So make sure you check that out. But yeah, thank you so much for sharing all your expertise and your love of Tableau Server. I feel like that's one area that I don't feel like gets covered a lot in TUG groups, so it's always good to have that come back every once in a while. So thank you. Cool. All right.
Thank you all so much.
Yeah. All right. So Sekou,
Yep.
take it away, my friend.
Awesome. Second, get my screen set up. Cool. All right, we good? Can we see it? Everybody good?
Yep, we're good now.
Cool, awesome. Thanks for joining. This is Power BI from a Tableau's developer's perspective. I feel like that's really key in this presentation because we're all at a Tableau user group. So this is the title of my presentation. It's not really witty or crafty, but that's what I came up with. All right, goals for the session: provide high-level exposure to Microsoft Power BI platform. I want to get that out there now. I'm generally just giving you exposure to the platform, what's happening. What I'm seeing is more people have more questions about Microsoft and Power BI and how does it connect to Tableau, so on and so forth. So I built a session on top of it. I'm doing the exact same session for other community. More people in Microsoft Power BI are asking about Tableau. So it's just familiarity. Provide general high-level information about Power BI and Tableau, provide information on pricing and scalability, and provide a live demo with a very simplistic public data set. What the session is not, it's not a sales pitch. I personally don't care what you use. If you use Tableau, if you use Power BI, if you use spreadsheets or whatever for what you're building out, that's awesome. I don't make any money from this, so I'm not trying to sway you from one direction or the other. Showing favoritism or bias towards a particular tool. I always get a question, which is your favorite? It's whatever is needed at that time. I love Tableau. I love Power BI. I love spreadsheets. I love writing stuff, pen and paper, and getting numbers that way. So I don't have a particular favorite or bias towards any particular tool. Not a session on data security, and it's not a session on advanced DAX or Tableau calculations. As we all know, advanced calculations can get really difficult. So this is not that. Really high level information in the session. So the agenda, do a quick introduction about myself and my company, what I work for, Power BI Tableau introduction, pricing structure, community initiatives, go over some similarities, go over some differences, and then have time for closing and any questions. All right, so I currently work at Lovelytics. Lovelytics is a fantastic company to work at. We're a consulting firm. We currently have 1 Tableau visionary and we have 4 Tableau ambassadors on board. We're also 2021's Rising Star Partner of the Year for Tableau. When I originally came there, I was a director of data visualization, but recently been moved to senior manager of data engineering. So basically from a career perspective, I was doing a lot of the front end visualization stuff. Now I care a little bit more about the back end and understanding data modeling and APIs and connecting the data sources and so on and so forth. So career trajectory there. Also co-lead the Nashville Tableau user group as well. We just had a meeting last Monday. We're taking May off for the conference and our next session will be in June. Yes, but look us up. We have a lot of great content, a lot of good people, a lot of good speakers. So as we're in this still virtual world, feel free to join our sessions. We would love to have you. Also co-lead a Nashville Power BI user group in Nashville as well. We're a meetup. We haven't had a session this year, kind of taking a break, but we're about to ramp it back up in the later 6 months of the year. We have some stuff lined up. And just as a call out, we have Steve Wexler come in, present in 2021. Really big in Tableau community, but his content is so, data visualization driven that when I asked him to speak at our Power BI group, he was okay with it. So again, the mentality of data visualization, connecting to different and connecting people is kind of the mindset. Content, Sekou, SQL, SEKOU, that is my content. YouTube, I have a blog. Gmail, if you got any questions, hit me up. Twitter, Instagram, I even have a TikTok, but I've never created a single TikTok a day in my life, but it's on there. So if I ever decide to do any type of TikTok stuff, you'll have there, but I have no idea what I'm doing, but same name. So if you want to follow me on all those platforms, go for it. I'm more than happy to connect with you. Certifications, Tableau Ambassador, I have 3 different Tableau consultant certifications. I have a Power BI data analyst one for Microsoft, and even have an Alteryx one. So say all to say, the mentality is multiple tools, multiple platforms, multiple things. That's just the mindset of how can you do multiple things, solve the same problem with multiple tools. But at the end of the day, when it comes to that, regardless of the tool, who I basically am and what I strive to always do is I aim to empower people to make better decisions by delightfully displaying data that matters. I think we're all in this industry and we're all here to where we get access to a lot of data, but what makes the greats really great and the people who can tell a story is you're highlighting information that really, really matters. What's the relevant information when we have access to all this stuff? So at the end of the day, regardless of what tool I'm using, that's my end goal is I want to display data that matters. Another thing as well is I care about the problem more than I care about the product. If whoever I'm assisting or who I'm working with or what have you, I care about what we're trying to solve for more than I'm saying you should use this, you should do this. Multiple things can do it multiple ways, but if we can figure out the problem that we're trying to solve for, then the product will be the best one for it. So ultimately, again, Tableau user group, Tableau I'm always going to pitch for. That's going to be, what it is. But at the end of the day, the mentality is like, how can I solve the problem? It's always a problem solving mentality. So Power BI and Tableau introduction. This is real quick. This is on the website. Power BI is a collection of software services, apps, connectors that work together. It is a Windows desktop application. So if you are a Mac user, you're gonna have to figure out a way to have Power BI desktop work on your computer, whether it's with parallels or setting up a virtual machine or something. So they do not have a native Mac desktop application. Tableau helps people see and understand data. Visual analytics platform is transforming the way people use data to solve problems. Market leading choice of modern business intelligence. Our analytics platform makes it easier for people to explore and manage data and faster discover and share insights that can change businesses in the world. That's from www.tableau.com. And they've done all that. They do all that. They're definitely a market leader. A lot of people use Tableau. It's definitely growing. If you look at the recent business intelligence, I cannot think of the name of it, but there's a chart where they show the market leaders from BI. Tableau and Power BI have been 1 and 2 for some years now. All right, product dictionary. We love a table. So I put this out here because when you're discussing or talking to different people, there's a lot of different software in this ecosystem. The Tableau has a list of products, Power BI has a list of products. So I decided to create a dictionary. Within there, you'll see some similarities. Within Tableau desktop, you connect to your data source, you push it up to your server. You do the exact same thing in Power BI. There's Power BI desktop, you connect to it, you push it up to the server, people log in, consume it that way. You have Tableau Prep. So Tableau Prep is your primarily data transformation layer where you come in, connect, do some aggregation, do some modeling, whatever you need. You also have that in Power BI from either Power Query or Azure Data Factory. There's a difference between the two in Microsoft world. With Tableau Prep, you can read and actually write it out to a database or to a data source and spit it out. Power Queries only read only, so you are having to connect to a database, a data source, a CSV, whatever you're connecting to. Azure Data Factory, it is more your ETL type tool to where you can connect to it, do some transformations and spit it out to a database, to a CSV, whatever the file type that you want. So they're kind of different. So you can do some of the similarities, but for Tableau Prep, I put those two together with the Power BI. Then you have Tableau Online, Tableau Server, same thing as Power BI Service, Tableau Mobile, Power BI Mobile, your mobile application. You have Ask Data, which just went over, Power BI Q&A, natural language, you type a question and then a chart pops up. We have Tableau Public, where a lot of us people in the Tableau community have posted, great visualizations, and it is public information, public charts that's hosted by Tableau. Exact same concept in Power BI is Power BI Gallery. So you host it, you post up your Power BI dashboards, and it is living on Power BI. You have Tableau Desktop Extensions. So this is your customizable stuff that you're able to either download from a third-party source or build out yourself. Exact same thing in Power BI Desktop Custom Visuals. You can build out a custom visual, or you can go to a third-party Microsoft shop and download them yourself. And then when it comes to actually communicating, you have Slack, which Tableau just did an integration with, to where you can integrate Slack and Tableau together. If you're on Microsoft Teams, which is their, again, instant messaging stuff, you can send a Power BI link and it connects that way. So a lot of similarities, just depends on the ecosystem that you're working with. Enterprise pricing structure. So high level, I'm talking about the different pricing. But quick call out, I want to call out Tableau and Power BI offer different pricing structures for academic, government, and nonprofits. So great thing to really notice if you're working in any of these entities. Biggest one is pricing, Tableau pricing. You see there's a difference between being fully hosted by Tableau and then on premises or the cloud. This is all out there available on tableau.com. You see the difference between a creator license, explorer, and viewer license. Creator license, you have the ability to create and actually do content, have a Tableau desktop, and it comes with Tableau Prep Builder. And if you do anything Tableau Online, Tableau Explorer allows you to explore your information while logging in Tableau Online. Tableau Viewer allows you to actually view the information that's been created. So different pricing structure depending on where you're at. Power BI, Power BI Pro, this is just your individual license. Power BI Desktop itself is free, but when you are trying to push it up to the server, that's where it costs money. So it's $9.99 a month per user to be able to consume it. This is just a Pro. Premium, there's added stuff within the Premium. There's a link there. A lot of features of Power BI Pro that are not available in Power BI. I'm sorry, a lot of features that are available in Power BI Premium that are not available in Power BI Pro. And then you have per capacity. So if you're a larger organization and you just, scaling up to a massive amount, you have this $5,000 per capacity per month. There's a license structure. So more information out there if you're curious, but it's at the high level, the pricing structure there. User group and conferences. So pretty sure people are really excited about next month for Tableau in Vegas. If you're going to be in Vegas, holler at me. I'll be there. It would be great to meet some of y'all people in person. That'd be amazing. Power BI user groups as well. So you have your actual Tableau user groups where we're at today. Go to the website, search, and you'll be able to see what user groups are going on. Same thing, Power BI. Then the conferences, like I just mentioned, Tableau conference, and then we'll put reInvent on here for AWS and then other Tableau stuff as well. Same things, a lot of stuff in Power BI. There's Ignite, there's Past Data, and there's other stuff that I didn't list. But the biggest point is that there's community aspect and the community aspirations that are similar, but also different at the same time. So there is a community involvement there. All right, so that's my chart. So we're going to talk about some similarities between Power BI and Tableau. With the introduction of Tableau and the noodles came the similarities of data modeling. So now you have the ability to create a star schema. If you're familiar with data modeling, star schema in essence is you have one big fact table, which has all your transactions, and you have dimension modeling. If you ever talk to anybody that's in Power BI or Microsoft or data warehousing, they talk about this aspect a lot. With Tableau's introduction to noodles, you're able to recreate this capability. So there's a lot of similarities there. We'll talk about visualization, analytics pane, conditional formatting, some formatting options, customized color palettes, talk about how you can do the similarities of having your same color palette in your preference file. You can do the exact same thing in Power BI with the JSON, navigation buttons, and then they both can use map blocks. So if anybody's using any lat longs or any type of custom mapping, you can integrate that as well. So let's get into actual demo mode. The first one I will go is Tableau. And before I do that, let's see if there are any questions. Gartner, appreciate it, Sean. Yes, the Gartner BI thing. That was the product comparison, the 1 and 2 that I was talking about. And I see many instances where a company will have Tableau in-house and then also bring in Power BI, vice versa. What gaps would that potentially fill in? Sometimes. So sometimes if a company started and they weren't necessarily using a lot of Microsoft products. So what I mean by that is they're using Google Sheets and Google Slides and Google everything or whatever third-party stuff that's not necessarily Microsoft. Then they pivot and then they're doing more Microsoft stuff. So they're doing Microsoft Excel, Microsoft SQL Server, Microsoft this, Microsoft ADF, whatever. Then naturally, or even Databricks for that matter as well. Then naturally they're going to do, they're looking more into Power BI because it just fits into their ecosystem. So it kind of just depends there. Yeah, and then Jay answered that. So good question there. All right, biggest piece of all this stuff, we're in data visualization. The first word of that is data. So you have to be able to connect to something. So if we go and click on data, within Tableau, we see all these different data sources that we're able to connect to. You can connect to an actual file, and then you can connect to an actual server instance. So a lot of similarities here, a lot of stuff that you connect to within Tableau that you can, in essence, connect to in Power BI. So if I come in here and go to get data, it will then pull up all the different areas. So again, file, database, Power Platform. Also one thing of note, because it's a Microsoft product, they're naturally gonna put their Microsoft products up here first. So this is Microsoft SQL Server, all that, and then everything else falls below that. And then you have Azure, a lot of stuff in Azure, online services as well, and you just connect to different things. But at the end of the day, you connect the data and you do some transformations there. What it is next on my list, if we go back to visualizations. So if we go to our visualizations pane, the biggest thing, if we go to Tableau, what we're all used to are the well, not the bubbles, but the buttons, the cells, that's what we call them, the cells. So you come in here, you put your date or whatever it is that you want to use, and you have your total cells, and that belongs in your columns and rows, and then that populates your actual charts. If you go on to Power BI, it is a bit different. So if we look at our actual data that we have, one thing that you could do similar in Tableau, if you come in here and look at your model, you come in here and you see your data model, you see the information, it takes you to this page and then you go back. If I go to Power BI, you can look at your model that way, or you can click this icon where it says data model and you see all of your joins and stuff as well. So exact same thing, you see the cardinality, you see the exact same thing. So like I said, with the emphasis on the noodles and connecting to it, similar concept where you have your cardinality, your one-to-many, and just, you know, some of your data warehousing techniques and data modeling techniques there. But from a pure visual standpoint, you have your visuals here. So these are all the visuals that are pre-built. If you click on these 3 dot ellipses, this is where you go and get your custom visuals. So like I was talking about earlier, you have the ability to either create custom visuals or download them as well. One kind of caveat there is that it's local to the workbook that you're working on, which I think is similar to Tableau Desktop. But every time you are opening up a new workbook, you'll have to download that custom visual and implement it as well. So, but to build out a visual where we're used to the pills, that's what the word I was looking for, the pills. When you're used to the pills, you're used to bringing your pills into columns and then you're filling in with your total cells within Tableau. Let's say I want to create the exact same chart or a chart for that matter. If I bring in group, your y-axis is what you are using here. And if I need to fill in, I'm going to look at some aggregation. So what is my aggregation? I'm just going to bring in total cells. And we see that that fills in. Group is not a good one to use. Let me do region. Yes. So regardless of what visualization you're using, you're going to have an X and Y axis depending on what chart you're using. So I brought this in. I have my dimension, my category, what I'm using, and then I have my total sum of cells. Let's say I want to switch this to a stack column chart. We see that my X and my Y axis stays the same. It just flips because I changed what chart I'm using, so on and so forth. So the biggest difference there is understanding the difference between your categories, your dimensions, your nouns, whatever you want to call it, and then whatever it is that you're aggregating, that will fill in and will just change and auto-populate for you within this tool. Another thing as well is the Analytics Pane. You can do some analytics. I think I have a line chart in here somewhere. Yeah, so let's say I click this line chart. We see there's 3 buttons up here. You have your actual build your data component here. You have all things formatting, and then you have an analytics component here. If we go back into Tableau, we see that we have our line chart. All our formatting is in our marks card. So like was shown earlier, if there's any type of dimensions or anything I want to use for coloring, I'd bring that into my color marks card size, so on and so forth. There's also analytics component in here as well. So we look at the top left, we see the constant line average, you know, just the different things that you can do. So again, similarities there. There's some similarities with regards to kind of the formatting and conditioning and the stuff that you want to show. Conditional formatting. So if I go to conditional formatting, we'll actually go back to the visuals. I did build this out. So you have your line chart, your bar chart, you have a map, and you have just a, you know, custom table that you want to put together and tree map. So some of the similarities and the visuals that are available by default within Tableau, you can also have in Power BI. So if I go back to Tableau, same visuals. So tree map, have a map. Same thing with the data. The data is filtered out, so you know it's not showing here. You have a highlighted table, a bar chart, and line chart that is there. If I go to conditional formatting, we know within conditional formatting, typically, if you create a if statement, you put it onto your marks card. You know, in Tableau, you can control it by using the calculated field to do your measure. So if I were to come in here and let's say I just want to do the month, I know that I can control my color. Likewise, if I want to do an actual aggregation to control my color, you have that capability there. Same thing within Power BI. This one is based on a dimension. So if I go in here and I go to my formatting pane, I go to bars, we see that this is built by the dimension. So we see the bytes, components, clothing, accessories that is controlled by the dimensions. Likewise, you can also do it with the calculated field itself. I'll go into the example because this is more of a difference versus a similarity, but there's some similarities there. Same thing with the measure, like I just showed, you can control it using the measure, and that controls that. And what else did I have? Formatting, talked about formatting. So if we go into our formatting, a lot of the text stuff, a lot of different effects are available as well. All this stuff will be in the formatting icon. So again, differences there, but some similarities. One biggest thing that Tableau has on top of anybody is this label functionality, the fact to do a lot of cool stuff with just your label using your data. I definitely think bar none, adding context and using different things with the label marks card is way more easier and more efficient and just way better within Tableau than other tools that I've used. So that's a key difference that I've definitely noticed here. Customized color palettes. So if we go to like what was shown earlier, you have your preference file. So you in there and you put like the color palettes you want to put in here, you upload it, then it goes into your Tableau repository. You can do the exact same thing within Power BI. The difference is that is a JSON file versus it being a TPS. So, but exact same thing, you put your data colors here, you can even do background, foreground, some other stuff that you can also do in preferences. So again, similarities, as we talked about in the last session, how much can you do upstream, how much stays consistent, how much doesn't change. Having these custom palettes are really great when you're creating, especially from a company perspective, because everybody's using the exact same font for the most part, as much as you can control, the exact same font, exact same color scheme. A lot of that stuff is just baked in, so it just makes it awesome for you to use. So we also have, what else is there? And then navigation buttons, I'll walk through that a little bit, and then map out the integration. All right, so those similarities, some of the key differences. If we look at the product update schedule, I think Tableau is quarterly, put a question mark there, but I think they're updated quarterly. Power BI is updated monthly, so that is a difference there. Sometimes the stuff is directly within Power BI. So sometimes it has other tools and stuff connected to within the Microsoft ecosystem. So while it is updated monthly, it might not necessarily always be a big, gigantic update. When we go to dashboard design, the biggest piece is within Tableau, you are creating individual worksheets. So all of these are individual worksheets, then compiled together to be one dashboard that connects and interacts. Within Power BI, all of these, you start with a blank canvas and then you just create visuals and slicers and connect it all together that way. So that's always the biggest difference when it comes to that, is the fact that it is not necessarily worksheet to dashboard, is a blank canvas, and worksheet to worksheet. And I think you can snap the grid. That's a great question. Pretty sure you can somewhere in here, but I've seen people talk about that before. So that is a big key difference there. When I talk about data cleanup prep, I talk about Tableau Prep and desktop. You can do some stuff as well in there, but there is a separate tool. So you might run a flow and create something in Tableau Prep, but then you connect it to Tableau desktop. Now you have two combined products. You have Power Query and Power BI. So quickly show you what Power Query is. Power Query is a tool where you click, let's say, transform data. This is Power Query. This is built into it. So again, you download a Power BI desktop, but it brings up your Power Query editor. So if I were to come in here, there's just stuff that you can do in Power Query. A quick example of would be removing duplicates. So we see here that we have, we see that the exact same number is here, 970, 970. If I want to come in here, let's say remove other columns and then remove duplicates, now we only see it once. So with a couple of clicks of the button, I've done some data transformation within Power Query. So, just a couple of things that Power Query has that with some of the modeling behind the scenes of Tableau Desktop and Tableau Prep take you a couple steps. So that's kind of a key difference. You talk to some people like who focus on Power Query and the different desktop, just some of the behind the scenes stuff. We also have, let's see, navigation. So typically dashboard navigation, you're either creating a button or objects, linking it up together. Power BI is the exact same thing, navigation, but it's also navigation button as well. When it comes to data modeling, you're kind of stuck with either using a live connection only in Tableau, or you're using a extract. So you're either connecting to a Tableau extract and that's refreshed on the Tableau server. Within Power BI, there's this thing called composite model. So a piece of your model could actually be a live connection and the rest of it be extracts. That recently came out last year, if I'm not mistaken. But that is a component there. Export by default, Tableau Desktop, you are limited to CSV. Power BI, you can do Excel by default as well. Date parsing, one thing that is great within Tableau is just the different date capability. So if you bring in a date field, you see you can do a date, year, quarter, month, all the different parsing that comes along using the dates. Within Power BI, you need to build out a calendar table for that stuff. That's not a default thing. So typically what that looks like from a calendar table perspective is you have a date field and then you're creating individual fields depending on the slice and dice and the granularity that you want. So you don't have it baked in. There's stuff that you do in DAX, but it's just much easier to do some of that date parse and date calculation stuff in Tableau. It's just really, really simple to do and much easier. Tables. So biggest one, at the end of the day, we're in a data practice, but tables can be a little bit more difficult in Tableau to produce. They are a little bit easier in Power BI. Also with the conditional formatting. So if we go to our conditional formatting as well, we see this is one same table. We click on here, click conditional formatting. It gives you different options to do different things. So if I want to format the color based on the field, I could, font colors, data bars, icons, and even URL. You do that all within the table itself. If I was to do this in Tableau, you would have to do dual access, combine it, kind of chop it up and do all types of stuff in order to get in this format. So that is a pro here within this particular tool. That is a key, I won't say key difference, but it is a difference, especially depending on your audience when there's like, hey, I just want the data and I want to be able to export it out. So something there to consider. Tableau calculations, table calculations. They're more advanced than Tableau. Their table calcs are great. So we're just looking at, just one table calc that I have where I'm just doing, sum of sales and I'm just computing it down. It's much easier, a little bit more efficient, a lot of stuff that you can do customizable within this tool. Power BI table calculations definitely lack in that regard. I enjoy table calculations much more in Tableau, and they're really great. Data calculations, Tableau functions are great, really easy to pick up. DAX functions are powerful, but can be tricky as well. So if you're unfamiliar with DAX, it can be a lot to try and figure out to understand the proper context for DAX. And if you're unfamiliar with variables and kind of programming and all that stuff, it could be really fairly difficult to kind of pick it up. And it would say, I've been using this tool, I don't know, probably 6-7+ years. And every day I'm trying to figure out and learn something in DAX. I don't think anybody ever masters DAX. It's just a difficult language. So an example of what DAX will look like. So in Tableau, let's say I created this, I have my total sales, and I created a max total sales. I did total sales, right? Here's a calculation that I built out, which gives me that max value, my total value across the line. And then I created that and did another, basically a chart, a visual, in order to give me the percentage across the line. So if I want to do the exact same thing, let's say if I go to my calculations, I have my total sales, and then I have my total sales percentage, which is basically doing that, create the calculation, and then I have my total sales all. One thing, anybody that also is in the calculations with Tableau, all selected is similar to your fixed statement. So if you're used to that kind of cadence of calculate and fix, this will get you there. So I have another session. I'll actually have another blog on it, but all selected and fix are similar. So basically you would create two different calculations and then you roll on one. Within Power BI, because of use of variables, you could all do this in one and call that variable. So I have variable total sales with the exact same calculation, and then I have my all sales, which is doing that fixed expression that I'm used to, and then I'm doing the divide and doing this all in one calculation. So because of that, I bring it in here and it's all in one thing. So key difference there is how you can create some of your calculations and bring in some of your data. Again, high level exposure to it, very, very, high level use case, but there's some stuff that you can do when the calculations wise, all in one actual calculation that you can't necessarily do in Tableau. But in Tableau as well, it's kind of easier to kind of read what you're doing as well. You can create the folders and structures and all that stuff, understand what your calculations are doing. And then another one as well, Tableau is much better at maps. Power BI is fairly limited, so that's why I call that map box if you use a map box. But Tableau's map layers and just that whole update and functionality is fantastic. So anything geospatial related, if you're doing a lot of that, I highly recommend Tableau, 100% of the time in regards to Power BI, and some of that mapping is just really lax. So ultimately, at the end of the day, we have data visualization. We have our data, which is jumbled up, sorted, is arranged, and is presented visually. So it's from left to right. And our end goal is to make sure that we are presenting something visually that is appealing and that our customer can consume. So any questions? All right, so John, yes, you can cross tab to Excel, which is in a CSV. I understand that concept, but at the same time, your calculations and just your raw information, what you want isn't always exporting out the best. By default, if I have it in just say this particular format and I want to export it out to Excel, if I have some stuff behind the scenes, like it's going to spit out just much more naturally in Excel because it's just a Microsoft product. So yes, it's not a CSV. You can do it to Excel, but I've seen several instances where exporting it to Excel, it gives headaches, especially if you're doing some table calcs or whatever it is that you're trying to do. But great call out there. Definitely great call out.
Cool. Good stuff, man.
Cool. Awesome. Well, yeah, content, questions, have anything, you're following me, more than happy to help out and talk more about it. And yeah, let's see, I've heard in the past Power BI formula is very similar. Yeah, they are fairly similar. There is some stuff in DAX that is different in Excel, but there are some similarities there. So if you're used to, in Excel, if you're used to your sum ifs or even no X lookup isn't there, but it's just some other stuff that is similar in Excel to Power BI. So there is some familiarity as well, but there's also stuff that's much different in Power BI that's not available in Excel either. So DAX, at the end of the day, it stands for Data Analysis Expressions, and their end goal of what they market and everything is that you can bring all your data in regardless of what platform it comes from, and these functions and calculations will work regardless of what I'm using. So that is their marketing for it.
Awesome.
And then last question from William, can I publish from Powerguide Desktop Public? Yeah, you can. So same thing as Tableau Public. You can make sure, as always, make sure you're using a public data set, because once it goes to whatever cloud's being hosted, you don't own it anymore, and it can, successful for whatever. But yeah, you can do the exact same thing. Awesome. Well, that's my presentation. Thanks for joining. Kind of sped through that a little bit. But if you have any questions, reach out.
Awesome. Cool stuff. Thanks, Sekou or Sekou. I appreciate you taking the time to walk through that. I know that there's, Power BI is definitely, it's not going anywhere, right? Especially for us Tableau users. It's always going to be there. And I know that there are a lot of enterprises, large enterprises that are doing both. So it's good to have a good foundational knowledge of both tools. So good stuff, man. Cool. All right. Jay, what's happening, man?
Next user group is June, right? We're not doing one in May, correct? It's Tableau conference.
Well, today's May, but yeah.
Yeah, we're in May. Thought that was April. I don't know.
Yeah.
Confused. But yeah, if anyone's at Tableau conference, I'll be there. Sean, you'll be there, right?
Yep. We'll be there.
Yeah. Yeah, seek us out.
Yeah. So yeah, we got another. So we got one in June, and it's going to be a lot of fun. I think we're going to do some. Is there anything you want to tease people with, Jay?
Yeah, we're going to do all about dates, everything date related. So we're going to talk about just all the built-in native functionality of dates in Tableau, how to get some of those, default table calcs to work, and then just everything that can do. And then we'll get into like year-over-year analysis on trend charts. So how to create like a date equalizer is what we call it. So you can see 1 year and another year layered on top of each other. We'll get into using parameters to dynamically change the aggregation of your data axis based upon the date range. You don't want to see every day if you're looking at a year, right? So you can tie your axis to like week or month based upon whatever parameter they select for the date range. So we're going to get into that. And now I'm going to go into custom period over period calculations, like rolling week over week, month over month, month to date, how to do that. And then rolling like 30 days, 60 days, you can dynamically change the that of calculations. And then also some, I know that's a lot. We're doing everything dates. So yeah, Kevin, we do a lot with dates with our clients, especially in financials. There's a lot of year over year, week over week, and just stuff like that. So yeah, tune in.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah, that'll be good. So yeah, Tableau conference. If you're going, come seek us out. If you're not going, please join virtually. There you go. Thank you, Brandi. Thank you again to Brandi and Sekou for your awesome content today. We really appreciate it. And the last thing that I want to shamelessly plug is I have started doing Workout Wednesday live streams. So every single Thursday at 12:15 Kansas City time, I jump on YouTube, do a live stream where I actually walk through, watch me build every single Workout Wednesday challenge. So I know that there's a few people on here that have who've tuned in. So it's a good time. We learn a little bit. You watch me sweat and watch me struggle, which is a good way to see how people learn, which is cool. So definitely check that out. Go to my YouTube channel. And you can set yourself reminders for every single one. I've got them all planned out through the rest of the year. So it'll be a good time. So yeah. So I think with that, anything else? All right. Well, have a great week. Have a great month. We'll see you next month.